Yeah, I can go ahead and get started. My name is Theo Sky. I'm an executive creative director and co-founder of a company called Medialets. We're an advertising platform specifically for serving ads to mobile. So we serve all kinds of ads to mobile tablets, mobile handsets, Android, iOS, Windows, all that. And our clients are basically the agencies who use our platform via our website to schedule all their campaigns and then deliver them all and then measure them when they come back to market. But I'm actually not here to talk today about Medialets at all. I'm here to talk about something that's resulted from the work that we've done at Medialets and is going to very soon be a new standard for the entire digital advertising industry to apply to in the ways that they'll apply to it. So we'll talk about that, but I want to talk a little bit first about just some background information. I think we have a pretty wide array of folks from different backgrounds in the room. So first, what is advertising? Fundamentally, right? It's drawing attention to a product or service in a public medium, right? So you're not telling a friend, you're telling other folks in public medium in order to change their behavior, right? Or in order to make them buy something, in order to make them attend an event, things like that. Let's talk about how the business of advertising works very fundamentally. Sorry, this is review for some folks who are in the industry, but it's actually very simple. You have a brand, let's say it's Coca-Cola or American Express. Those brands, those big brands, typically hire agencies. They hire agencies. There's two kinds of agencies. There are more if you get into the details, but there's fundamentally two kinds of agencies. Media agencies that decide where the advertisements are going to go and when and to who and all that. And then you have creative agencies, Don Draper being represented there, who decide how the advertising is going to happen, right? So there's where and when on the media side, and then how on the creative side. That's usually the prototypical division. Then you have the publishers, okay, and the publishers play a really important role because the publishers are the ones producing all the content that is attracting the audience. So you could be a publisher, you could be ABC Television and producing shows or distributing shows. You could be the New York Times, putting a newspaper, tablet apps, that kind of thing. And all in all, the brand is looking to connect with the consumers to change their behavior. And a lot of this work now is actually happens in an entirely automated fashion. So there's big software platforms all about letting a brand, even if it's a mom and pop shop, reach that consumer in a very automated way. So the main advertising mediums, I think we've all been subject to them at least 10 times each today. We've got print, we have out of home, all the signage around us here in New York. We have, of course, radio, television, and digital. And today we're going to really focus on digital because this new standard is all about digital advertising. So what's digital advertising specifically? It's delivery onto screens, right? So screens like iPads and desktop computers and more so televisions, but it's delivery via internet technologies. So it's not delivery over the air via television broadcast, it's delivery through IT, it's downloading stuff, basically. And there's different formats in digital. We have paid search, we're all familiar with Google AdWords. We have video ads, these pre-rolls in front of YouTube. We have social media ads that use our social graph to try to target relevant messaging. We have so-called native ads that try to fit in and blend in with content and duplicate the content experience in a property. And then there's display. In display advertising in digital, there's sort of two basic types. There's static banners, an example here where it's literally just a JPEG and it just waits for the user to click on it. It's just a picture, right? So static banners. And then there's rich media banners, and they come in all shapes and sizes, of course, but rich media banners are the ones that animate automatically often on the screen. They have interactivity points, they might have video embedded within them. They might tap to expand and get bigger when the user interacts with them. This new standard helps rich media a lot. So there's this group called the IAB, some of you may know about, the Interactive Advertising Bureau. And they basically set standards for the digital advertising industry. And one of the standards that they set is the sizes of these ads. So you can imagine I'm a media buyer and I want to go send my brand's messages out, and I need to reach an audience, and an audience may be on hundreds and hundreds of different websites or hundreds of different apps. There's standard ad sizes that I can prepare my creative to, so that I don't have to go and get different specifications from every single one of those publishers and make a specific ad creative to a specific size on every one of those publishers. So the IAB set these standards for, I think, almost a decade now, depending on who you ask, for desktop websites. And digital advertising, digital display advertising began in 1994. There's a picture that's showing up here. That's okay. There's a little banner. The first banner ever from AT&T said something like, they didn't even have the AT&T logo in it. It said, "Have you ever clicked here?" And it said, "You will." And that was it. That was the entire first banner on the web ever. And so it didn't contain much in terms of brand in and of itself, but it did something really interesting. For the first time ever in advertising, the brand was able to measure exactly how many people saw the ad and how many people interacted with it. In this case, it was just a click. But never before had a brand been able to do that. So digital spoke its power even back in 1994. And you can see a funny, if you can read it here, it says this is the 1994, one of the covers of PC, and it says, "Make the internet connection." And the computer telephony convergence is on the horizon here. Funny stuff. So, but back in 1994, the screen, the digital screen, the screen that digital ads were going to, it wasn't even digital. It was a CRT, the cathode ray tube. It was an analog device. And those screens are long gone, right? You try and find one. You can't even get them at a pawn shop anymore. If you're filming a movie that takes place in 1994, try and find one. It's hard to do. Today's screens are very, very different than those screens, right? So when digital advertising was formed, or first born, and over the course of the next decade, all these standards were formed that, frankly, are aging. And there are so many screens now. We have screens everywhere. We have screens all around us every day. If Cortana has her way, screens are going to be telling us how to live our lives very soon. And the fact that we have all these screens around us creates a really unprecedented opportunity for advertisers, but it also creates enormous challenges for advertisers. And during the time founding Medialets since 2008, we've been sort of bearing the brunt and at the forefront of helping advertisers solve those challenges to get their brand messages onto these screens in various ways. And there are just so many screens. There's so many different devices. How, as an advertiser, do you design, let's say, a display banner that's full page? Right? What is full page when you have this? And you have screens that the page changes aspect ratios at the flick of a wrist. Landscape and portrait. You have some screens that have twice, 3 times the number of pixels as other screens, these super high def, high density retina displays. And it creates a lot of fragmentation, And so it's not just what sizes do I have to build and design my advertisement for anymore in a digital display campaign. It's what resolutions, what aspect ratios. All my ads are really stressing out my creative team and my media team. And publishers, typically how it happens, right? A media team goes and buys what they're called placements, places to put ads on a publisher's website. And publishers communicate back and say, yes, here's our placements, they cost this much, and here are all their sizes and dimensions and specifications. And they're having a really hard time doing that now that there's all these different screens around. It's probably hard to see because the text is rather small, but this is an actual media plan. I probably shouldn't be showing this in a public forum, but I won't say what brand it was. This is an actual media plan across some very major recognizable publishers. We have Yelp, we have ESPN, AOL, Weather Channel, Millennial Media is a big ad network. And if you look over here in the column that says initial size, this was ads that expand. So they start at one size. If the user taps that banner, it'll get bigger, right? And look at all these different sizes here. 300 by 50, 320 by 50, going down here, 480 by 75, 300, so 728 by 90. For each one of these initial banners, a creative has to be designed. A designer has to sit in Photoshop and make an asset, right? And usually it can be animated. Someone has to build that and animate it all. And then when it taps to expand, they have to design whatever that expanded experience, what's going to live in that expanded panel. And we have all these different sizes here, 320 by 416, 40 by 320. As somebody who's lived and breathed mobile for the last, since mobile smartphones really started having apps on them in 2008, almost all of these sizes are wrong. They're almost all wrong. They're almost all inaccurate. They're at least incomplete specifications, and the industry has been struggling tremendously. And we've been living that as a vendor to these agencies who are asking the question, okay, I bought a bunch of media out on some publisher sites. The publishers are giving me these specifications. I need to serve some ads in 2 weeks from now. We have to design them and build them and QA them and make sure they all work. These are the sizes that the publisher gave me. And we look and we laugh because we know that they're rather wrong. So we started asking ourselves the question, how can we help the entire industry navigate all of these challenges? And we realized that we asked ourselves, is some technology going to be invented that will solve these problems for us? No, because maybe until Cortana comes along and designs our banners for us, we have to sit down and we have to know what we're doing. Today's technology is a lot more basic, so it's not going to save us, at least not yet. The key is actually about communication. It's about, if you take back that big spreadsheet, it's called a traffic sheet, and you look at all the sizes and specs on there, it's basically a communication, communicating all these sizes back to the folks that need to use them to do their jobs. So we created this new standard for communicating different ad sizes for the real world of today's screens and how they really work and how ad placements work. It's called ASPEC, A-S-P-E-C, all caps. One of the ways it can be used is publishers, for example, can use it to communicate their specs to media agencies and creative agencies accurately and completely. Creative agencies can use it to design ads that can accurately be served in the places where they're going to display. We're going to look at ASPEC in pretty soon, so actually right now. Let's jump in. So we're going to start with a very simple example. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a standard IAB banner, a little stretched out due to some video issues, but it's 300 by 250. So, and this is actually where you see the numbers there, 300x250. That's actually a very simple but valid line of ASPEC. So ASPEC uses the standards we already know. We have the width, 300. This is very basic stuff. You're not missing anything. This is very simple. 300, that describes how wide it is. 250 describes how high it is. The X is a very important symbol. Right now, people take it for granted. Well, I say 300 by 250. I put an X in between. Well, ASPEC formalizes that into a specification that says the X character is the character that separates widths from heights. The industry is already doing this, so it's no struggle. You're not changing anything, but ASPEC formalizes that. The width is always on the left. Right? A lot of times people swap it, and they put the height on the left. The height is always on the right. The width and height make up what's called a layout in ASPEC. Okay, so we're formalizing, creating some vocabulary words so that people can communicate accurately. And really what we're talking about is we're talking about the anatomy of how we're describing these various ad placements. So, see, it's really easy, okay? But don't panic as we keep going. It might get a little more technical. It gets more interesting because the screens get a lot more interesting than just a simple banner, okay? So now there's this notion of expandable ads. Very common in rich media display ad formats, expandables. You start with a smaller banner, and the user taps that, the banner gets bigger. Okay, so here's a banner that's the dimensions on the left, 300 by 250 to 300 by 500. So we have this standard word we use to describe to, T-O. 350, 300 by 250 to 300 by 500, okay? And that's a standard. There are 45 different ways I could show you about how publishers describe their expandable ad formats that are not that, okay? So, and those 45 different ways all have to be deciphered, and it's simply impractical to do. It doesn't scale. So we establish some standards here and say this is how we, as an industry, are going to describe expandable ad placements. There's another slightly related but future-leading ad format, multi-panel ads, where it's not tapping from a small panel to then make it bigger. I actually have 2 panels simultaneously visible. You may have seen these ads on the web. You have a banner at the top and maybe a banner on the right side, and maybe they talk to each other and do something clever. But this could be extended even to multiple screens, right? You have multiple screens at once. I have an ad experience on my phone or my tablet, and it's talking to the ad experience that's up on my living room wall. So we've established the standard of width. The primary panels on the left separated by the word width from the secondary panel. So this is an example of a small banner on your phone talking to the full screen HD ad that's up on your living room wall. And again, ASPEC isn't setting standard sizes. It's not standard sizes, it's how to describe the sizes. So the IAB is undoubtedly going to use ASPEC to describe some new standard sizes that we'll all start building towards, maybe, but ASPEC is really just the ingredients, it's not, or the recipe, it's not really the outcome. So, oops. So another very common situation we have is orientation changes. Again, what is full page if I have this and I have this? Okay? If I'm a designer sitting in front of my Mac and I open Photoshop and someone says design a full page iPad ad, what do I do? Like, is it landscape? Is it portrait? What do I do? So, and then once I decide what to do, or I'm told what I have to do, how can I communicate that effectively? Right? So we came up with this convention of using an ampersand to separate 2 layouts in the same panel. So this panel has 2 layouts. It has a portrait layout and it has a landscape layout. There's some prefixes there to help people read it. So you say portrait is 768 by 1024 and landscape is 1024 by 768. Simple stuff. This is another big one. We've all maybe had mobile devices since iPhone 3s, iPhone 4s, maybe Android, various Android phones by now. Chances are we've all had more than one smartphone device. And we know that probably the first smartphone we had was a different screen size than the current smartphone that we have. So again, what is full page? What is full screen? And if I have literally thousands of different screen sizes out there, how, as an advertiser, am I supposed to know what full page is? How can I do anything? So the answer is using what in the design world we call fluid layouts. Okay, so fluid layout flexes and grows. So using, if I'm going to design an advertisement that uses a fluid layout, I need a way to describe that. And then you can tell my designers what to design for. So ASPEC uses the example of size ranges. So in this case, we actually have an orientation where we do a panel ad that has size ranges. And this is actually the size. We've been using this for a year or a year and a half. We've been building ads that meet these specifications. And really, we just came up with this language because we had no other way to do it. So in this case, we have a portrait layout that's 768 wide. That's this dimension across. Then we have a height range of 900 to 1024. So from this all the way to that, or anything in between. Right? So we also have more complex examples where the width might vary and the height might vary. But this is just a simple way to describe it. Go back. Okay, there. And then the one last example here is where we can design and build one single ad creative that can be trafficked to lots of different sizes that are all very different from each other. And this is a notion in design that's getting a lot of traction called responsive design. And responsive design basically detects the environment where content of the advertisement or the website or whatever it is being shown and acts accordingly. It looks good. You have to know the sizes up front, but ASPEC uses a / character to separate different panels and responsive design. And guys, we're not going to go through this, but ASPEC can get very, very detailed. And this is an example of a expandable creative that uses orientation awareness in the expanded panel, and it's also responsibly designed. So this creative that we're looking at here that's documented with this line of ASPEC would work in, frankly, almost half of the mobile ad placements out there in the world. So this is very powerful because without being able to describe this ad product that can do all of these things, a creative agency is left with designing 75 different ads, potentially, right? 75 different ad sizes and traffic them out and reporting on each one. It simply doesn't scale, it simply doesn't work. So we have to be designing our ads better, and we have to be communicating about these situations in a way that actually accurately describes them. This is not meant to be read, but this is just a glossary of terms that ASPEC standardizes. So it creates a common language of common symbols that we can all, as an industry, use to describe these situations of different placement sizes that change shapes, or might be different shapes under different circumstances, or might change shape as user behavior does. We can use ASPEC to describe all these situations. So any publishers in the audience, main takeaways for you guys in terms of ASPEC. First, learn it. You'll have an opportunity to do that soon, as the IAB is going to release it as a beta specification as fast as the IAB moves, so soon. Use ASPEC to assure that you're communicating your placement sizes accurately, right? Use it to make sure that you're accounting for these things, these situations on all these different devices. And start planning on selling placements that are different sizes and may be trafficked across different devices, very different devices. So today, for example, the publishing industry works in terms of, well, I'm going to sell the top of my homepage on the iPhone, and that's what's bought. Or I'm going to sell the top of the page on my desktop site, and that's what's bought. Well, the user of today, frankly, it may go on an iPhone, it may go on a desktop, and the advertiser wants to reach them no matter what device they're on. The media, the placements should not be sold in terms on device terms, just because the technology is limiting them to do that. We have to start selling in terms of how users are actually using. So media agencies, probably not too many in the room right now, but make sure that when they're buying inventory that they're asking for ASPEC by name. Make sure those placements that are listed on that media plan, all those crazy sizes, make sure that they are in ASPEC so that you know that they're accurate and that they're complete. And creative agencies, ASPEC has a lot of power for creative agencies. It basically can potentially cut their work down by an order of magnitude. So you get one of those big media plans with lots of different placement sizes, and I can do a quick little formula and figure out, well, I can just do one creative that's going to work everywhere, or two instead of 22. And it saves us a lot of time. So for the tech vendors in the room, and this is where ASPEC starts to get more interesting down the road as the industry starts to adopt it. We talked about earlier about a lot of those, a lot of what happens in advertising becoming very automated. So it's not always such a simple scenario where I, as a brand, am going to buy through my agency, I'm going to buy inventory in the New York Times, and I know that's where my ad is going to be shown. A lot of times I'm buying across audiences, and it's kind of challenging to wrap your mind around, but for me it is. I'm buying audiences across ad networks that are in hundreds of websites and hundreds of different apps potentially, and so I don't know what app or what place the ad creative is going to be shown, but I know when it gets there I want it to work. And all the decisioning around where to send the ad from that server that's sending the ad and delivering it to the person, it all happens in real time. It's all happening using location-based data, for example. Like so an ad may be bought, let's say, or a media plan may be put together saying, I want to target users who are outside of coffee shops. Okay, so I'm walking down a coffee shop, I'm on my app, and I get an ad for whatever that brand was. That all had to happen in real time. It couldn't be predicted. They didn't know I was going to do that. So I, as a creative agent, as an ad tech company, I need to know that when I deliver that ad there, that it's going to be the right size. And if I have this world, there's all these different size parameters, I need to be able to do more calculations on size than simple width and height, because I may have creatives that can work in a range of sizes, and publishers and devices and screens out there that can accommodate a range of sizes, and it just simply needs to, the technology that's serving all these things needs to reflect that reality. So next step, as I mentioned before, the IAB is going to release ASPEC as a beta version very soon, hopefully, within the next couple weeks. So that's going to be published on the IAB's website. And again, this was just donated to the IAB. There's in it for nothing except the fame and fortune of speaking at Web Congress. But I think it's going to help us a lot. I think it's going to help the industry a lot and really take digital advertising to the next level, at least allow it to. So I'm also going to be leading a working group that the IAB is hosting so that we can get more industry input and make sure that what I came up with after hours on my laptop is actually going to work for the industry. So if you're interested in taking part in that working group, it's just a series of calls. Just let me know, reach out. We'd be happy to get you on the list, so to speak. So look out for the beta release soon from the IAB. Thanks very much. If there's any questions, let me know.